We are continuing our series, Summer in the Psalms. And you know, the Psalms are songs. And I was thinking about how every once in a while there's just a song that comes along that like defines the summer. It is the song of the summer. And I thought of Justin Timberlake, Can't Stop the Feeling. You know, just can't help but move when you hear that. You want to dance, you want to sing, it gets stuck in your head and it stays with you. And so our hope is this summer, you're going to find an anthem. You're going to find a song, a scripture, something that will carry you and stay with you and stick with you all summer long. We've actually looked at Psalm 23, Psalm 67, Psalm 4, and this week we are looking at Psalm 143. And this psalm has a really special place in my heart. It came to life for me several years ago when I was really walking through a difficult season. I felt like such a mess. I was desperate for hope. I was looking for help. I was praying a lot of short prayers like, God, help, help. If you've ever been through a season like that, you know those short prayers. And this psalm just ministered to me. So I hope that it's going to minister to you this morning. You know, if you've ever been in a difficult season and looking for hope and help, the Psalms are a great place to go. It's a great place to even just stay and camp out for a while. So this season of my life that was so hard, I really felt like a disaster on the inside, in my soul. And I remember one day I went to BibleGateway.com, which is just a free Bible software on the internet, and I searched for the word soul. I knew that's where my mess was, and I was going to God's word to try to find an answer. And that word came up 498 times in the King James Version of the Bible. And I remember just seeing the results of that search and feeling like God was speaking in that our soul matters to him. Your soul matters to him. And I want you to take that message away this morning. Your soul matters to God. And you may be wondering, okay, what do you mean when you say my soul? This is the immaterial part of you. No, it's your thoughts, your emotions, your heart. It's the you that you are on the inside. It's also the part of you that's eternal. No wonder your soul matters to God. Now, as I read all of these 498 verses, they confirmed this truth. God is so passionate about our soul. Now, then I noticed in Psalm 143, it had the word soul in it 5 times. There's only 12 verses and 5 souls. And I remember thinking, there's something here in this passage. God has a word for me in this. So we're going to dig into these 5 souls. But you know, when that came alive to me, I really saw a picture of my life. I saw where I had been, where I was at that moment, and the step that I needed to take to move forward in freedom in my life. And so I'm praying maybe God is going to reveal that to you this morning too. So, all right, let's start at the first soul, which is actually in verse 3. And I'm going to be reading this morning from the Amplified Bible. Verse 3 says, "For the enemy has pursued and persecuted my soul. He has crushed my life down to the ground. He's made me dwell in dark places like those who have long been dead." Ouch. Now we can say things are not well with his soul. The very first Greek translation of the ancient Hebrew scriptures is called the Septuagint. And the Septuagint suggests that this psalm was written by King David when he was being pursued by his own son, Absalom. Now, Nancy gave us some of the background of this story in her message last week. And we know David made some mistakes as a parent. He really messed up. And now his son is chasing him. He's wanting to usurp the throne of the kingdom. And David's running for his life. Just like imagine that for a minute. A father running for his life from the son who wants to end it. Now, as a parent, nothing is quite as painful as having broken relationships with your children. that will mess with your soul. Now, we all know families aren't supposed to be that way, and so we feel pain in that. And here's David, his own son has become his enemy, and it is messing with him on the inside. Now, anyone who's ever had brokenness in their family knows that it's not just the relationship that causes pain, then it's all the things we tell ourselves. It's the lies we believe. It's the false narrative we buy into about who we are and what we've done because of the brokenness in the relationship. And this is where we encounter the enemy of our soul, the accuser, the father of lies, the devil. We know our soul is important to God, but now we see it's also a target of the enemy. Maybe the enemy just knows how dear our soul is to our Father, and so it's a target for him as well. There's a battle for our soul. Now, I have to talk about a couple more verses that don't have soul in them just because I think they're so important. Verse 4 gives us a picture into what's happening inside of David. He says, "My spirit is overwhelmed, and it faints within me, wrapped in gloom. My heart within me grows numb." Now, I appreciate so much how honest he is about the state of his soul. He just lays it all out there. He's like, man, I'm a mess. I'm overwhelmed. I'm gloomy. I'm probably a little bit depressed. I am seriously struggling. And owning where you are is such an important step to moving forward. Now, maybe you need to acknowledge the state of your soul today. It's easy to put that off and to maybe even stay in denial. But maybe you need to take some time and say, okay, this is what I'm really feeling. Take a pencil, grab some paper, get it out. Now, I can relate to the numbness that he's talking about in this verse. Maybe you've been there too. Now, sometimes life is just hard and it's painful and we don't want to feel the pain, so we try to numb. Have you ever just numbed out? No, I think like vegging out on the sofa, binge watching TV, maybe food. We can numb out with food. There's all kinds of ways in today's culture to numb out or even just to choose to shut down emotionally. And we're numbing because we don't want to feel the pain. But we end up not feeling much at all. And we miss out on some of those things in our life that are still good because of the pain in one area. In her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brené Brown says this: we cannot selectively numb emotions. When we numb the painful ones, we also numb the positive ones. Maybe you know what that's like, just trudging through life, getting on that treadmill of existence and just groaning and moaning and going through the motions of life in that numb place. It's good to acknowledge the state of our soul, but the great news is we don't have to stay there. We don't have to stay in those gloomy places. We can get off the treadmill of existence. And I think we see a key in this passage in verse 5. The psalmist says, "I remember the days of old. I meditate on all your doings. I ponder the work of your hands." Taking time to remember what God has done in your life, his faithfulness, his steadfast love, his goodness, his grace. Remembering will help you step off the treadmill and actually help you get somewhere, because remembering stirs up our faith. Remembering stirs up hope. And we know if God was faithful in the past, he will be faithful in our future. What a powerful thing to do in times of uncertainty. When we are here like we are right now, not knowing what the future holds, we can spend some time remembering God's faithfulness in our past. David says, "I ponder the work of your hands. And then because I remember that God is faithful, I reach out my hands to you." This is where we find the second soul in verse 6. "I spread forth my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a thirsty land." Now, David's acknowledging here that our soul comes with needs. No, I believe God designed us with needs that are most often met in the context of relationships. We're designed for community. We need each other. And what a gift it is when the people in our lives are there for us, when they can meet our needs. Well, several years ago, David and I did a study all about relational needs. And the author identified 10 primary needs: security, provision, consistency, belonging, value, comfort, recognition, affection, encouragement, and support. How many of you are like, yes, I need all of those. I need it now. Now, these are all good things that we need to feel safe and to thrive, not only in our relationships, but really to thrive in life. Now, it's eye-opening to go through this process and identify your top relational needs, and then to see how they're being met or perhaps not being met. And then coming to grips with the fact that sometimes the people that we most want to meet our needs aren't able to do it, or they won't do it for some reason. And then the task becomes to take those needs to God and trust that He will meet them. Now, one of my top relational needs is consistency, which is really just a fancy way of saying I don't like change. And what I've learned is that when things are shifting in my life, or when I'm going through a transition season, I am longing for consistency. I am looking for a pattern. I want a routine. I am waiting for new normal. And so now I know in those transitions that I have to remind myself of God's faithfulness. I have to remind myself that God never changes, even when things in my life are changing. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And then to know that He is the solid rock beneath my feet, even when my feet are walking down paths they've never been down before. David says in this psalm, "My soul thirsts for you." And when Jesus walked this earth, He said, "Come and drink of me." Jesus quenches our thirsty souls in a way that no one else can. Now, when David stretched his hands out to God, this is a posture of receiving. It's a posture of expectation, because he knows that every good and perfect gift comes from God, that God would give him what he really needed. Do you need to bring your thirsty soul to Jesus this morning? Now, maybe let's just take a minute and even do that now. You can stretch forth your hands just like this and say, God, I'm thirsty today. I need value. I need consistency. I need support. I need encouragement. I need belonging, whatever it is you need. And today, Lord, I'm looking to you to meet this need. Remind me of who you are. Remind me of your faithful work in my life. Satisfy my thirsty soul. And we see the third soul in Psalm 143 in verse 8. The psalmist says, cause me to hear your loving kindness in the morning, for on you do I lean, and in you do I trust. Cause me to know the way wherein I should walk, for I lift my soul to you. You know, when I just casually read this verse, I think, okay, I get it. No, that's a picture of surrender. We're lifting our heart to Jesus. But you know, that one night when this came alive to me, what I realized is he's lifting up a crushed, persecuted, gloomy, numb soul. Like, this is not a pretty offering. This is his brokenness, his mess that he's lifting up to Jesus. And when I read this psalm, I remember picturing myself holding on to my broken soul like a trophy of the pain that I had survived. I was holding on tight to my wounded soul, and it's kind of like I picked up this. All right, this is my son's football trophy. And I love that the little guy at the top is stiff-arming someone. Like, how appropriate is that for a survivor trophy and a wounded soul? But I felt myself carrying this thing around like I've been through pain, but now I've survived. But I don't want to let go of this because it makes me feel safe. One of my favorite authors, Paula Reinhardt, says, we can, unfortunately, build a monument to our woundedness. We can shape an identity around the things that we've suffered. Man, I don't want to live that way. I know you don't want to live that way either, where our brokenness becomes our identity. The psalmist, if he could lift up his broken, messy, crushed soul to Jesus, guess what, you guys? We can do the same thing. We can make the same offering. Now, whether your soul has been broken because of a relationship or just the wear and tear of life or even the strain of the past 15 weeks, we can lift our messy soul, our survivor trophy, our woundedness up to God and let it go. And know that He restores our soul. Now, that's my favorite out of all the 498 verses. Psalm 23:3, He restores my soul. That's amazing news. He takes our broken soul and He returns it to His original design and function. Now, I've been thinking about this, and soul restoration is not a sloppy do-it-yourself home improvement project. It's not just putting some shiplap over the cracked walls. No, soul restoration is a complete and total renovation. Jesus makes us new. Now, does anyone need a little soul restoration this morning? Now, are you holding on to your brokenness? Can you identify with my survivor trophy? It's so easy to find ourselves in that place where our pain becomes our identity. But you don't have to live that way. And I just want to encourage you, want to challenge you to lift up your messy soul to Jesus and let Him restore it. We find the fourth soul in verse 11. He says, save my life, O Lord, for your name's sake. In your righteousness, bring my soul out of trouble and free me from my distress. True confession, I used to believe that if I just loved Jesus and was a good person, that I would somehow get through life without any trouble. Kind of like Christianity was a get out of pain free card. Anyone want that card? Like, just sounds good to you, sounded good to me. And then when pain actually came to my life, it shocked me a little bit because I was a good person. I didn't deserve this. Why is this happening to me?